Walk if you want, Liam said, smiling like he'd already won. You wouldn't last a week without me. He was still in his suit from the board dinner, tie loose, champagne on his breath, talking to the view instead of to me. 41 floors of glass and winter sky, the kind of view that makes a city look like it belongs to whoever has the highest lease. He flicked his wrist at the kitchen island like a judge dismissing a case. I took the house key, the Kian key, the elevator fob, and the spare safe key. One by one, I set them on the marble. Each click sounded like a small door closing behind me. No speech? He asked. No dramatic monologue? I picked up my tote, the one he called frumpy because it didn't announce a logo from across the room. You said a week, I said. Start counting. He laughed. It wasn't nice. You'll be back by Tuesday, Lena. People like you always come back. The door was heavier than I remembered. I didn't look back. 3 hours later, I sat in a boutique hotel off Madison where the lobby music was soft and the staff made a point of not noticing faces. I checked the time. 12:08 a.m. day 0, technically. My phone vibrated. 17 missed calls. 2 from Liam. 5 from unknown numbers that were never unknown. 3 from Bancroft Family Office. I silenced everything but the camera app. I still had access to the condo's cameras. Liam never understood the difference between disconnecting a device and disabling a user. The feed showed him pacing our kitchen in his socks, the way he did when he was too mad to pretend he wasn't mad. He picked up the keys and put them back down. Called someone. Father, probably. Or Louise, his COO, who had opinions about my haircuts and everything else. A notification slid across my screen, wire authorization request declined. Dual signature required. There it was, the first tremor. He'd tried to move money from the joint account, the one his family office insisted we keep for optics. He never needed my signature because he never needed to move money from that account. Not until tonight. The night manager handed me a keycard like I was anyone. Room 1512 smelled like clean soap and newer paint. Smaller than our condo, larger than the inside of my chest, which felt full of a storm I'd been forecasting for months. I set my tote on the desk and unzipped the pouch I kept inside. The pouch was ugly on purpose. Inside, a prepaid phone, a USB-C drive, a neatly folded lease addendum with my maiden name on it, and a laminated card with 4 words, "You are not waiting." I'd printed that card the morning I found the folder on Liam's desktop labeled Cruise and opened it to see a scanned letter from a concierge psychiatrist. The letter described my increasing emotional lability, though I hadn't cried in his presence since last June. It recommended brief observation at a private clinic. The letter had a place for a spouse's signature. Liam had practiced mine twice, then saved the clean version. Date stamped 2 months ago. After that, I started counting forks in drawers and steps between cameras and how many times the family office emailed the trust attorney when I booked a flight to see my mother. I booked 3 flights and canceled 2. The family office complained 3 times. I stopped pretending I didn't notice. Tonight, the plan wasn't elegant. It was practical. Step 1, stabilize. Step 2, surface. Step 3, sever. Stabilize meant money that wasn't his. Not the allowance he called a household stipend. My money. The one account Liam never asked about because he considered my contract work cute. Once upon a time, I wrote copy for apps. Then I learned to read what apps did, not what they said. Found dark patterns like bruises under makeup. Quietly fixed them when clients listened. Quietly kept receipts when they didn't. The past 2 years, my cute invoices went through a tiny LLC that forwarded funds to a regional bank he'd never set up view-only access for. Not enough to buy a yacht. Enough to buy a week. Surface meant that I would stop being invisible to the right people. I opened the prepaid phone and sent one text to one number, "I'm out." Timer started. My friend Noor, who worked compliance at a firm Liam called The Hobbyists, texted back a single checkmark emoji. She never used words she didn't need. Sever meant exactly what it sounds like. I logged into the password vault Liam didn't know existed. Not his. Mine. Years of small learning stacked into a staircase. The maintenance codes for the condo elevators. The backup schedule for the building's server. The list of shell companies that funneled ad tech money into Liam's unicorn. Candidly, I didn't need to break anything. I only needed to stop holding the pieces together. At 1:06 a.m., Liam called again. I let it ring. Then my screen flashed a different name, Graham Bancroft. Liam's father. I let that ring, too. I imagined Graham staring at a banker's dashboard, watching the dual signature system he insisted on turn from a formality into a brick wall. He'd tell Liam to get me, to charm me, to threaten me. He'd forget the part where I once sat in a conference room and watched a man explain privacy law to me while using a slide with 3 misspelled words, and understood more than he did. I showered. Put on the hotel robe with the comically wide sleeves. Ate the protein bar I kept in my tote because I knew a night like this was coming. When the adrenaline dip hit, I let it. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling and didn't cry. Not out of pride. Out of habit. Crying in that condo always felt like asking for permission. Morning came gray and blurry. I checked the condo feed. Liam had fallen asleep on the sofa around 3. The keys were still on the island. Good. Leave the centerpiece in place. I walked to a coffee shop that didn't make a ceremony of coffee. Name? The barista asked. Lee, I said, because it was easier to spell than Lena. I found a table by the radiator and opened my laptop. The Candidly press page loaded. A photo of Liam with his sleeve rolled just enough to suggest work. Headline: Fixing the Internet's Trust Problem. I almost laughed. Inbox: 42 new emails. 3 from Louise Hart / candidly subject line urgent. 1 from my lawyer, subject line simply, you ready? Ready is a funny word. It assumes things are steady. Nothing was steady now. That was the point. I wrote 2 emails. The first went to our building manager. Please remove Lena Bancroft from all resident lists linked to Penthouse A effective immediately. All deliveries redirected. All guest codes revoked. The second went to a journalist I'd met at a talk on deceptive UX. Subject: off the record, for now. I typed 3 sentences. No names. No claims. Just a breadcrumb trail in prose any decent reporter would know how to follow. On my way back to the hotel, my phone rang with a bank's local number. I answered. Ms. Bancroft? We're calling about recent changes to your joint account. Polite voice. Scripted calm. We've received requests for several outgoing wires requiring co-authorization. Decline them, I said, and gave the phrase Patricia had told me to memorize, per signer protection clause B. Note: signer elects refusal without prejudice. Policy words are better than knives. By noon, Liam's text shifted tone. The first ones were commands parsed as questions. Where did you go? Come home. We can talk. By lunch, they were bargains. Sign one form, I'll leave you the apartment. At 2, Louise / candidly finally tried charm. We're worried. PR can get ahead of this if we coordinate. At 3, the charm turned. You are making a mistake that will affect a lot of people. Mistake. People like Liam love that word. It puts the blame on the wrong end of the sentence. At 4, Noor's message arrived. Timer at T6. Then, check your burner. The prepaid phone lit with a New Jersey number. A voice I didn't know, careful in the way people get when they record themselves for a living. Ms. Bancroft? This is Special Agent Marissa Cho with the FTC. Your friend said you might have concerns about a company called Candidly. If you're willing to speak, I'm willing to listen. I looked at the city through the hotel glass. The streetlights were winking on. the week had started. I'd left my keys on marble. He thought I'd left with nothing. I opened the window an inch and let the cold air hit my face like truth. "Agent Cho," I said. "I have a folder. It's called Cruise, but it isn't a vacation." The clock began to tick louder. The email from Agent Cho arrived at 9:07 a.m. sharp. Polite, procedural, unnervingly clear, acknowledgement of my materials, a request for an in-person interview, and a reminder not to remove or alter any data I might reasonably anticipate being relevant. I read it twice, then forwarded it to my attorney with the subject line, "Proceed." At 9:11, a new calendar invite appeared, "Family Dinner, Bancroft Residence, 7:30 p.m. Sent by Louise from Liam's work account. Location: the house in Westchester I only ever saw in holiday photos with catered snow. Notes: peacekeeping conversation. Graham cooking. Please be gracious. Graham didn't cook. Graham outsourced. The title might as well have read intervention. I texted Noor, T5. "Dinner ambush tonight." She replied, "Wear flats. Never heels to an ambush." By late afternoon I'd printed a thin stack of papers and slid them into a manila folder labeled recipes. Inside were not recipes but copies of 3 things: the letter from the concierge psychiatrist, a diagram showing Candidly's consent flows, where users thought they were opting out but weren't, and a timeline of Liam's attempted wires since midnight. A grocery list of the week to come. The Westchester house felt like a museum exhibit about wealth curated by someone who had never met joy. A golf green lawn, tasteful stone, a door that opened itself. Inside, the air smelled like rosemary and old carpet. Louise stood in the foyer in a suit that could file an injunction on its own. "Lena," she said, as if we were colleagues meeting over a quarterly review. "Thank you for coming." "I wasn't invited," I said. "I was summoned." From the living room, voices, Graham's rich baritone, Liam's higher, brittle pitch. A third voice I didn't recognize, male, professional, patient in the way a billable hour is patient. We entered. Graham rose from a leather chair and smiled like a judge whose verdict is both inevitable and kind. "Lena," he said, arms open but not moving. "Family should talk face to face." "Good news," I said. "I'm not family." Liam looked thinner, a single bad week carved into his face like a warning sign. His tie was perfect. His hands were not. "We just want to make sure you're okay," he said. "You left in the middle of the night." "I left at 9:17 p.m, I corrected. "The middle of the night started at 12:01 when you tried to move money without me." The third man rose. "James Keller," he said, offering a hand. "Mediator." Not the same Keller as Liam's lawyer, close enough in name to confuse a headline later if necessary. "Interesting choice." Louise gestured to the dining room. The table was set for 6 though there were 5 of us. A power play with an empty chair. Crystal, linen, candles. I took Noor's advice and sat in flats where I could move. Graham started strong. "We're concerned about how this looks," he said. "The press can be unkind. Our goal is privacy. We can accomplish that with a memorandum of understanding." Very generous terms. "Generosity requires ownership," I said. "You don't own me." Keller slid a document across the table. "This simply outlines a process," he said. "Cooling off period. No public statements. You continue to receive your stipend. We resolve disputes privately." "Quiet money," I said. "With a gag clause." "Standard," Louise said. I set my recipes folder down and pulled out the psychiatrist letter. "Standard like this?" I asked, sliding it to the center. "Because this standard letter authorizes a clinic to hold me without cause for 72 hours. It's signed with my name. Not by me." Liam didn't touch the paper. His jaw worked. "You snooped on my computer," he said. "I lived in that house," I said. "My name was on the lease and the wire floors." Graham didn't look at the letter. He looked at me. "You're upset," he said, voice lowered like we were co-conspirators to my own emotions. "We can scrap that. Start fresh. But optics matter. You leaving keys like that, people talk. The company has to protect itself." "The company sold trust while mapping users like property," I said, sliding out the consent flow diagram. "Here's where your product promises no tracking without consent, and here's where it keeps tracking anyway because the opt-out hides behind a scrolled modal. The team called this friction. I call it lying." Louise's lips tightened. "You're misinterpreting our UX." "Then the FTC will be thrilled to hear your interpretation," I said. Silence beat once. Twice. Keller spread his hands. "Let's reset," he said. "No accusations. Just interests. Lena, what do you want?" The table waited for the wrong answer. An apology. A vacation. A settlement. Clarity, I said. Separation of finances now. My share of marital assets segregated and controlled by me. In writing. No more surveillance, no family office view-only logins to anything with my name. And an end to any attempt to characterize me as unstable. You rescind and destroy that letter. If you've sent it anywhere, you notify them that the signature is forged. That's not how this works, Graham said softly. You don't get to dictate terms. Neither do you, I said, and pushed the final page out, a clean, friendly copy of my interview time with the FTC, printed on hotel stationery like a party invitation. Tomorrow at 10, I describe what I know. You can keep calling it a misunderstanding. I'll call it a timeline. Liam finally spoke. This will destroy us, he said, eyes glass. My team. The company. This is bigger than a marriage. It always was, I said. Graham leaned back. You married into a legacy, he said. Legacies endure. A week from now you'll wish you'd taken the stipend. I stood. A week from now, I'll still have my name. Louise cleared her throat. If you walk out, we'll assume adversarial posture. That includes reputational defense. We'll need to correct the record. Correct away, I said. I brought my own recorders to dinner. Keller blinked. Louise didn't. Graham's smile didn't move. Liam flinched. In the foyer, coat on, I paused at the oversized mirror and watched them through the reflection, three people who thought glass made them invisible. One more thing, I said, turning just enough. You left an empty chair at the table. Who were you expecting? Louise hesitated. Your mother, she said, and in her pause I heard the plan that didn't arrive. A weapon they couldn't deploy. I almost felt sorry for the calculus. Outside, the cold cut clean. I texted Noor, ambush ended. No casualties on our side. She replied, drink water. Then salt. Courtrooms are dehydrating. Back at the hotel, I called Agent Cho. I can bring originals, I said. And I can show you where the skeletons think they're hidden. 10 a.m., she said. Bring comfortable shoes. I packed the folder, the burner, the card that said I wasn't waiting. I looked at the city from the 12th floor and counted down. T5 became T for when I slept. Morning would be fluorescent lights and a small conference room with a pitcher of water and a microphone that blinked red when recording. I didn't know if I would shake. I did know I wasn't going to ask permission. The clock kept time. I finally did, too. The FTC conference room was smaller than I imagined. Pale walls, cheap carpet, one-way glass that reflected my own face back at me. Agent Marissa Cho didn't look like a government threat. She looked like someone who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised. You're early, she said. I've been waiting a long time, I answered. She placed a recorder on the table, clicked it on, and said for the record, interview with Ms. Lena Bancroft, November 3, 10:02 a.m. Re, Investigation into Candidly Technologies and related entities. I told her everything. The forged signature. The hidden tracking systems. The shell companies funneling data from user insights into ad networks that didn't exist on paper. The letter that called me unstable. She didn't interrupt. Only once did she look up from her notes. You have documentation? Copies, I said. The originals are stored with my attorney under sealed instructions. When I slid the USB across the table, I expected ceremony. She just nodded, labeled it Exhibit A, and placed it beside her coffee. 2 hours later, she closed her notebook. You realize this will go public, she said. I'm counting on it. Outside, November light hit the street like a cold slap. Noor was waiting by a food truck, 2 coffees in hand. You're trending, she said, showing me her phone. Headline, Candidly under federal review after allegations of privacy fraud. My name wasn't mentioned, but the quote was unmistakably mine, the truth doesn't need branding. That afternoon, Liam called. Not the usual number, a new one. I answered anyway. Why would you do this? He asked. His voice was flat, no arrogance left, just fatigue. You've made me a criminal. You did that yourself, I said. They'll come after me. They already have. He went quiet. I could hear papers rustling, a drawer opening, the click of a lighter. Then he said, Dad's furious. He's calling in favors. You don't understand what that means. I understand what silence means, I said. And I'm done with it. That night, the news broke harder. Footage of Graham Bancroft leaving his townhouse, jacket over his head. Louise exiting Candidly headquarters, chased by cameras. Federal agents carrying boxes labeled Client Data Archive. The empire was cracking, one headline at a time. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I felt empty. Freedom doesn't rush in like music, it arrives quiet, tired, waiting to see if you'll use it right. 3 days later, I was summoned again, this time to a hotel ballroom in Midtown. Candidly's emergency press conference. A show of control. A plea to investors. They wanted me there. Graham's assistant called it an opportunity to clarify misconceptions. Translation, containment. I went. Rows of journalists filled the room, cameras humming. Liam sat on stage beside his father, hands folded like a student caught cheating. Graham began with confidence. Our company remains committed to transparency. I walked in during his second sentence. Every head turned. The cameras followed like heat-seeking missiles. Graham stopped speaking. Liam froze. I crossed the carpet and climbed the side stairs, the one staff used. No security stopped me. I stood by the microphones and said, transparency starts with truth. You can't sell privacy while spying on people. You can't build trust on forged signatures. Graham hissed, sit down, Lena. I didn't. I looked at the audience, at every journalist who'd written about their empire, and said, you want a quote? Write this down. They said I wouldn't last a week without them. It's been 30 days. I'm still standing. They're the ones under investigation. The flashbulbs exploded. Liam closed his eyes. Graham's mouth twisted into something that wasn't a smile. Security escorted me out, gently, the way you do with someone you're suddenly afraid to touch. By evening, every outlet ran the clip. Whistleblower wife interrupts Bancroft press conference. My phone flooded, Noor's laughing text, Patricia's single word, historic. 2 weeks later, Graham was indicted for securities fraud and obstruction. Louise disappeared from every company record within hours. Liam accepted a plea deal, cooperation in exchange for reduced sentencing. He called once more before turning himself in. I thought you wanted revenge, he said. I wanted accuracy, I replied. And distance. When he hung up, I realized that was the first honest conversation we'd ever had. Spring came early. I moved into a small loft above a print shop in Brooklyn. The landlord didn't care who I'd been married to, only that rent arrived on time. My desk faced a fire escape. My computer ran clean, unmonitored. The first morning there, I built a new website. Not a startup. Not a cause. A foundation, Glassline. Free digital audits for women trapped in financial surveillance, wives, partners, employees whose passwords belonged to someone else. Noor handled infrastructure. Patricia handled law. Our first client came from Kansas. Second from Lisbon. By the end of month 2, we had 12. By the end of the year, we had hundreds. Agent Cho called once, months after the case closed. They settled, she said. FTC, DOJ, class action, all of it. You'll be compensated as a whistleblower. I don't need more money, I said. Then use it well, she replied. I did. On the anniversary of the night I left, I visited the old building. From the street, I could see our former windows 41 floors up. Someone else lived there now. A couple, maybe. I hoped they had better luck with truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out the same laminated card, "You are not waiting." The edges were worn now. I left it on the marble ledge outside the lobby, a small signpost for anyone who needed to start walking. Then I turned toward the subway, phone buzzing in my pocket. A message from Noor, another woman reached out. Says her husband owns her passwords. She's ready. I smiled. Send her the card, I texted back. The city noise rose around me, honks, voices, the endless pulse of people starting over. The week I wasn't supposed to survive had turned into a life. And this time, the only keys I carried opened doors I chose myself.